Greetings, folks. Oh. Hang on, give me 1 minute. All right. Good afternoon. Okay? All right. Hey, folks. Steve Vai here. And welcome to Alien Guitar Secrets. I think this is episode 5, perhaps. And this is where I'm doing my live streams at this time. We're in a corona lockdown. And I wanted to do my best to reach out to you guys, give you a little something to do on a Tuesday afternoon. Talk about guitar, talk about music, and play a little bit. And that was a little piece I played called The Crying Machine, a Fire Garden record. And it's kind of a relatively easy one to play. I haven't played it since the last tour, which was quite a while ago. That's why I chose an easy one to play for you. But I have really been enjoying these little podcasts or live streams, whatever they are. And I've been reading some of your comments and some of your questions, and they're just fantastic. And thank you for the support. I see a lot of people writing in, encouraging me to continue, so that's nice. But today we're going to talk about music and the guitar. And one of the things that I hear quite often from young musicians is this thing about music theory, understanding, is it important to understand music theory? How do I go about learning it? I can't seem to figure it out. I like to just play by ear. Well, what I'd like to kind of cover in this episode is how vital and how important it is to develop your ears, because that is your touch tone for all the communication you're going to be doing with other musicians, and also the touch tone, the idea of listening. It's the touch tone to finding the music that's in you. Because a lot of times, sometimes the theory can be very helpful, but it's more like a tool as opposed to the reason, so to speak. And you can write a lot of very intellectual sounding music by strictly sticking to music theory, and it's the infrastructure of its protocols, so to speak. But it always will require a listening to your musical instincts, your inner melody, or whatever it is, to start to create some unique melodies. So how does that help you on the guitar? Okay, so I'm going to review, I would like to give you some powerful, I believe very powerful, ear training exercises. And you don't have to really know much about music theory, but it is vital that you train your ears, because even if you knew no music theory at all, you have to be able to listen and respond. And you have to also be, in a collective environment with others. And you have to be able to listen and respond when you're improvising. And I'll get more into what that means. And you also have to be able to listen and respond when you're hearing a particular melody or a song idea. So, all right, give me 1 sec. Trusty Paul Reed Smith acoustic guitar here. I don't know what it sounds like out there, but it's a good guitar. Okay. So it's so important to develop a relationship between your ears and your fingers and the fretboard. What you want to be able to achieve is whenever you hear something and you need to respond musically, you almost you don't you want to get to that point where you do not need to depend on theory or scales or any of that stuff. They all have a great purpose, and I'll review some of what those are. But in the real situation, in the heat of battle, so to speak, when you're listening, the idea is you want to be free. You want to have no restrictions of necessarily having to think about what the scale, what the key, all these things. So you need to develop your ears to recognize these things instantly when you hear them. And it's not that difficult. You know, the music has its, its written language, but it's audio. And it affects us emotionally. It affects, I'm seeing this screen going, wah, wah, wah. Not sure why. Well, Stephen, if you can fix that. Anyway, so a really good way to start to develop your ears on the instrument, and it can be difficult at first, is to be able to sing what you play. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a good singing voice, but it does mean you have to be able to hit a pitch, whatever it is, and sing it. And for some people, it might be a little challenging at first. They go, they kind of search for but you'll get it. You'll feel it when it's right. So it's, and you want to focus on that. Feel it go through you. Listen to the note. You can look at what the note is. It's an E. And you can think this is an E. And then you want to go to another note. And you don't have to play like mad. You just need to focus and make that connection. It might start out simple. You might discover that you already have kind of a connection, but you want to be able to hold that connection. Even through all the weird notes. And I'm just playing basically atonal stuff. But this is where the melodies come from. And you can, if you sing what you play, you'll hear more of a connection between your inner ear and what your fingers do. So let's say you're doing something like very simple stuff. That's like just a little melody that I just found by singing the note, hearing it in my mind. I didn't know what it was going to be, but this is a great practice because that's what improvising is. It's in the moment, being connected and hearing, being a part of what you're doing by giving it your attention. And there's this zone, so to speak. It's like a dimension that when you're improvising and you're playing, your attention is on what you're doing, but you're almost like a hair ahead of it. So you're kind of hearing, and then it's coming out. So sweet little melody, major key. And that I was just slightly ahead of what I was playing with my attention in listening inside, and it kind of then just flows out. But you see, it takes a focus. So this singing what you play is a great way to start developing a relationship with the neck that will give you more independence from the theory and connect you directly with the inner ear. So the theory has its place. So for instance, a lot of people asked me about modes, you know, and what they are and the mystery of the modes. And on one level, the modes have a practical academic information that basically can describe what they are in regular terms. And just many of you already know, I don't want to waste too much of your time on it, but if you're in the key of E and you play a major scale, that's an E major scale. Its modal name is an Ionian scale. And if you play the same scale starting from the second note, it's still E major, but it's also considered F sharp Dorian. That's the second mode. And what that mode is a minor scale with a major sixth. So I'm going to assume then that now you know the rest of the modes, the fingerings and the theory behind them. It would be a waste of time to explain them because there's probably a billion web pages that will show you the theoretical information of a mode. But what I want to kind of review with you is the best way to memorize a mode, because a mode, it's a tonal color. It's a color, and when you focus on the color, you got the theory, you have the the information behind what it is. But when you focus on listening to the color of it, the personality of the mode, that's the best way to memorize it. Because then when you hear a chord or you're in a musical situation and you hear something that you have to respond to, you'll be able to identify what to play, basically, which mode, just by its color. So let's review some of that. So this singing exercise is really good. So let's say you wanted to totally immerse yourself in the major scale. Okay, so I'm just going to stay in this simple position, but that's a sound. Now, if you sit and you sing a melody just over that, so you hear the major tonality, and that's basically dictated by the fourth and the seventh. But you want to sing and marry the sound. So this is also great to do with the other modes, singing what you're playing there. So if I was to go to the second mode and play an E Dorian, that's a different color. So that's a minor scale with a major sixth. So now you... So that you get the flavor of that scale, which is much better than just knowing what it is. And then you can do this with all your modes, and you got your Phrygian, which is a minor scale with a lowered fifth. Whoops. So you feel that Phrygian. I can't sing that high. So you feel that? What's that speaking? Kind of feel to it. And then you go to like the fourth mode, which is the Lydian scale, which I'm a real sucker for. And that's a major scale with a raised fourth. So that's a color. Can you identify that? Can you feel the... is definitely a color and there's an emotion attached to it in a sense, or I should say a personality. So you can do that with all the modes, but spend a lot of time, create chord progressions within particular modes, and really be intimate with the personality of the mode. That's the best way to learn it. It's also the best way to learn chords. So I had, in one of the previous Alien Guitar Secrets, I may have spoken a little bit about the best way to learn chords. And this goes for any chord that you learn, any chord. There's two levels to it, basically. The first, obvious level is the information, the way it looks on paper, what the symbols are, how to write the symbols, why the theory behind why it's called a particular chord. But in reality, your closest personal experience of that chord is going to be when you play it and you listen really carefully. So with every chord that you learn, and I suggest you just go and get one of those, go online and find one of those basic chord books and just memorize every one. But as you're memorizing the fingerings and this kind of information, focus very intensely on the sound. So for instance, if I was to play a C chord, you listen very carefully. There's a personality in that chord. It's a very different personality than when you lift up your finger and make a major 7 chord. And you put a 5th in the bass. And a great way to do this is to play the chord and let it ring all the way out and give it your full attention, even as it's dying out. Just give your full attention. Listen until it becomes silent again. So there's an area of your brain that can memorize things. Like if I told you my phone number was 818-684-2372. It's not my number, but you would go 818-4-372. Maybe you're picturing it in your mind, the number, but there's something in you. There's a dimension that you enter into when you need to memorize something. Enter that dimension intensely with your ears when you're listening to the chords you play. And give it a personality, give it a story. I used to do this great thing with Joe when we were kids. One guy would be sitting on one bed, and the other guy would be sitting on the other, and it was dark, and one guy would play a chord, and the other guy had to listen to that chord really intensely and tell a story about it. Tell a story about that chord. Can you find a story? It's a dark night. On a street corner. The fog is low. There's a street lamp. And there's a man standing under it. Whatever, I don't know. Whatever comes to your mind. But what you're doing when you do that is you're creating a personal relationship with the color of the chord. And this is your best ear training. It doesn't require theory, and it's going to serve you incredibly well when you go to perform or you go to write a song. If you want to write a song about a particular subject that has a particular emotional charge for you, you go, well, what is the chords that I want to use? Well, when you're learning your chords, if you're focusing on the personality of the chords, you'll know. And so anything, it's a very interesting thing that I see in a lot of guitar players. There's these like two mentalities, and one of them believes that there's a secret that they have to know, and there's a way to find that secret, and there's a particular path, and they have to know what that path is, and they have to take every step appropriately, or they'll never know the secret of playing. Okay, that's and another mentality that can come from the same mind is this instrument is an open book. It has infinite expressional potentiality. When I put my fingers on it and I hear what I'm playing, when my ear guides me, I'm in the zone. You know, and that's what everybody is looking for, the zone, so to speak, where things are effortless, things are seamless, things are inspired, it's the best of you. And that's there, but it's not uncommon that the belief that there is a specific treasure map that you have to follow in order to get there, that can be a deterrent, you know. So a lot of other wonderful ear training exercises I can talk about that would be very helpful to you. Listening to chords like that and singing what you play. Singing what you play. You can also experiment with doing things like singing an interval. So like now, I don't want to start teaching get too deep into intervals as far as what they are, but an interval is the distance between two scale degrees. That's a fourth, interval of a fourth. Your ear to what they are. So if I play something like a root here, and then a fifth there, I'm singing the fifth, and then you start playing around. So that's a fifth, and if you can kind of figure out ways to navigate just by doing that, it's going to train your ears, and you can do that with fourths. So, and you can do this with all the intervals. And that'll really train your ear. And you can even do it with things like seconds. If I'm going to play an E and I sing an F sharp. Say, oh, and if you get really randy, you can play a minor second. It's hard. Not very useful, but it'll definitely train your ear to hold on to those intervals. All right, what else we got? Another great way to train your ear is to figure out music that's on records and stuff that you like. This is great training for a guitar player. And what's interesting is if you are doing that practice of memorizing the sound of a chord, A chord, whatever it is, when you go to listen to a record and a song that you like, it's much easier to identify with what you're hearing. Oh, that's a D chord. I know that because I know my D chord. I have a personal relationship with my D chords. So you'll know. And learning, transcribing from a record. Now, I know I'm talking to people with all sorts of different levels of proficiency. Some of you might be like, why is he talking about, something so simple? Well, there's a vast distance in the learning of everybody that's watching. So trying to find a middle ground. So listening to your favorite music and transcribing it, or I should say learning it by listening, is a great way to develop your ear. And what I used to do when I was younger, I remember when I got my first Led Zeppelin book. I couldn't believe it. It had all my favorite Led Zeppelin songs in it. And I was just learning how to, I think I might have even gotten the book before I learned how to play, or before I started playing, because it was Led Zeppelin. And I remember when I was starting to learn, I don't know if it had tab in it. Tab wasn't very popular back then. But I remember when I was looking at the music and I'm going, what is that? And I was just shocked that I played the first 4 notes of Since I've Been Loving You. That was exciting. So one thing you can experiment with is getting some music books from some of the music that you really like and seeing how it relates to what you're listening to when you're learning a song that you like. And unfortunately, sometimes the quality of the manuscript book can be questionable. It can be wrong, but you'll hear it, you'll know it. So learning something from the music and then listening to how it's being done on the record is a great way to adapt to being able to identify more songs. And it's nice if many people maybe they don't want to write their own music. That's fine, and that's actually, it's important for you to know that it's fine, because a lot of people can, and I've seen it happen, they create a lot of anxiety in themselves because they don't feel creative on a composition level or a songwriting level. It's not there for them. Now, of course, this is something you can work on and explore, but if it's not there, that's fine. There's nothing wrong. Maybe something else is there for you. Maybe just the idea of being able to play songs that you like, that you didn't write, is exciting for you. That's perfectly okay. If you at all ever feel any anxiety because you're not a songwriter, you're really doing a disservice to yourself. Because the pressure of the music industry and your friends maybe, and anything you see may dictate that, no, you need to be able to write songs. You need to be able to compose. And but you may not have those kinds of tools. And that's fine. I mean, I compose music for orchestras, and I'll walk into an orchestra and there'll be 90 people, and not many of them care about composition. Their juice is to read the notes that the composer wrote and do the best they can in fashioning those notes. And just playing them. There's a great joy in being able to look at a piece of music and play it on an instrument. And for some people, that's enough. And that's fine. I would venture to say that perhaps most orchestral musicians do compose to some degree, but it's obviously not as important to them as playing, or else they'd be composing. And even conductors, there's conductors that compose and there's conductors that don't compose. So there's guitar players that write, and there's guitar players that don't write. So if you're just not quite interested, or you prefer to just play, that's fine. So you can alleviate yourself from feeling any pressure that you need to be different than what you are, and you need to like to do things that other people think that you should like. Okay? That's freedom. Okay. All right. So transcribing things just by ear and playing them is really good. So it's so important, though, to memorize intervals, to be able to hear something like, and know that that interval is a fourth, or that's the sound of a third, or that's a minor seventh. And this is going to serve you really well. So how do you do, what are some methods of doing that? Well, first you have to just do a little bit of academic study. You have to know a little theory, and just that theory is intervals, what they are. That is a minor third, and why it's a minor third. But then you got to go deeper than the theory. And there's some really great apps that are focused on ear training that you can get, and they help you to memorize intervals, and there's all sorts of levels. But the best, another way to do it is what I used to do when I was young. I would make a tape, a cassette. That's what we had. And I would play an interval. And if I wanted to simplify, what I might suggest to you is just start with two different intervals, a fifth and a third. And then you make a tape. What I used to do is make a tape, and I would just play a random fifth. And I'd leave a little bit of space, and then I would say fifth. And then I'd maybe leave a little space, and then I'd say fifth. And then I'd do another one would come up. Leave a little space, third. So you go through all these basically random fifths and thirds. And if you make a tape or a recording, an hour long that does that, and then you move to other intervals, tritones, major sevenths, and singing them, your ears are going to blow up. I mean, they're just going to blow up, because you'll hear intervals and you will immediately recognize, oh yeah, that's a minor third, and this is how you develop eyes on your fingers, so to speak. So that's a great exercise, and you can do it for each interval, or let's say you take a group of intervals and you make 1 hour of 3 different intervals, and then you go through it. And don't move on until you can guess every single one of them flawlessly without one mistake. It takes patience, but what do you want? You want quality. When you're developing your ears, you don't want to skip anything. You want quality. So if you have an hour-long tape, imagine if you had a tape or recording that was an hour that consisted of nothing but random fifths and thirds and fourths, say, or 2 or 3 different intervals, and you were able to listen through it and guess or hear the correct interval 50% of the time. You want 100%. This is my suggestion. You want a bulletproof 100%, not an I almost got it. No, you really have to own the intervals. And if you can do that with all the intervals, you're doing pretty good. And it's a big step towards the opening of your fingers on the neck. One of the things I used to do this with, I started doing this when I went to Frank's house once, Frank Zappa, and he gave me a piece of music that was very difficult and very long. It was called Sinister Footwear. And I had to learn, and it was very complex, polyrhythms all over the place, and it was probably about 15 minutes of just this long melody, and he wanted me to play it on the sitar, the choral sitar. And Frank didn't let you use music when you were performing. So you could use the music to learn it, but you had to have it memorized by the time rehearsals were done, and preferably quickly. So how do you learn 15 minutes of terrifying melody? I did this where I read through it. I learned it to where I could read through it, and I tape recorded myself. And then I would go to sleep with headphones on. And I bought this little timer that would go off at like 4 a.m. while I was sleeping and turn this tape on. So I would have this melody going through my head when I was sleeping, in the thoughts that maybe this would somehow sort of ingrain the melody in me, because remembering it, that's hard. And I believe it was helpful, but I suggest doing that with the modes. I mean, with the modes, and also with your intervals. And I used to do that with intervals, where I'd make a tape with all these intervals, and I'd have it go on at night when I was sleeping. You got to think outside of the box. And you can also do this with chords, meaning what you really want to be able to do is recognize a chord just by hearing it. So this involves a little music theory. You got to know that that's a major chord and why. And these are all major chords, just and minor chords. So you can absolutely hear the emotional difference, the personality difference. And then you can, so then you make a tape and you just play these random chords. And the way I used to do it was I would play a major chord. Now you can even put a little drum beat to this, because you can use this for other types of powerful ear training that I'm going to explain in a minute. And let's say you're recording and you're just putting down these chords, and you got to go random, because you need to throw yourself off when you're listening back, so you're not using your memory to remember which chord you played. You want to use your ear to identify the chord. So you might do something like this. So you're going B major, and I would say B major. G major. That's a B flat 7 chord. So now you can start. I might suggest, based on where your ears are at right now, the different density of chords that you record should be at your level of being able to identify them. So if you don't know what a minor major 7 chord is, I would first stick to major and minor, and then start adding sevenths, and then start fooling around with all the different chords. You can start getting into the major minor chords, various tension chords, 13 chords. I mean, it's endless. But the goal in this example is to create a recording where, when you're listening back, you hear the chord, and you try to name it, and then you'll hear the name because you recorded it, so to correct yourself, so to speak. And then if you do that if you make even a 15-minute recording with major and minor, and then a 15-minute of major 7th and minor 7th, and then you mix all of those, and then you do 15-minute tape of dominant 7th, diminished chords, altered chords, all the various chords. When you can get through them at 100%, you're not even going to believe how that is going to affect your ability to respond intuitively in a musical situation, and also when you're searching your imagination, your feeling imagination, for just the right chord to express the lyrics or the atmosphere of whatever it is you're diving into. So that's a great example. And then what you do to really help develop your fingers, your fingers' eyes, when you go back and you listen to that tape again, but this time you jam over it. And obviously you don't know what chord is going to come, so you have to use your ears. So if a chord comes at, and I'm sorry I'm not like really prepared with examples and stuff, but I'm also working on my record. So now you in your chord recognition recording, you might have a chord like this, and then you might say that's a B over an E. Or there's other names, B major 9. Now, if you heard that chord and you didn't know it, you'd go, nope, wrong note. Okay, that note works. Now, then you're listening, and because you've been practicing your ear training and singing notes, now the theory, it's too late. Theory either has to be understood or left out of the equation. Meaning, when you're responding to a musical idea or sound, the best way to respond is by listening and moving within the dimension of listening. Now, of course, certain music theory may flash. Like if I heard a chord like that, I mean, a part of me knows exactly what it's called, what I can play on it, but I'm not thinking of that. I'm just going to go. What I'm going to do, but it's going to be something that belongs to this chord. And then if the next chord is, what does it feel like when you hear that? And then find that on the guitar, even if you found one note that works. Oops, sorry. Now, I'm not thinking what the scale is. I'm just kind of using my ear to navigate around the personality of this chord. So this is a great practice to do too. I think my camera doing weird things here. All right. You know, with this lockdown, I don't have Greg here, and all I do is make mistakes. All right. Okay, another great way to develop your ears, if you're one of those people that enjoy written music, manuscript, actually writing. See if I got some manuscript paper. All right, got some manuscript paper here. Now, a lot of times, with this thing, what did I do? Okay. A lot of times, the moment you mention written music, a lot of people go, yeah, I don't know, no, you can't write music, no. It's easy. It's easy. You start out slow, and you memorize what it is you're learning. Of course, there's some simple things you got to know, and this is for the ear training section for people that are interested in commanding the musical note on paper, the little black dots. So obviously you got to know what a G clef is, and then you start very simple. Like for instance, and you have to understand just this, simple metrics. What 4/4 means, 1, 2, 3, and what a quarter note is, bump, bump, dun, dun, dun. What a half note is, dun. I'm not going to give you that lesson. It's easy to find in a billion places, but you want to know what all your kind of rhythmic subdivisions are, what a quarter note is, a half note, 16th note, 32nd note, triplets, things like that. They're just subdivisions of time. And now let's say I want to learn how to write music and I want to be able to know what it is that I'm writing. Well, you start very slow and you pick two notes like C, da, and D, da. So now or you can even just start with C. So now I have those two notes, C and D. They look like that when they're not blurry. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, da, 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 da. Those are the two notes I have, and I got this tempo. And I'm going to sing. Now I'm using my imagination. I'm just going to hear a melody in my head. And because I know what a quarter note is, and I know what an eighth note is, and that kind of stuff, I can write down da 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 da. Mm, mm, mm. Mm, 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 da, da, da. I'm doing it in half time. Let me cut it up so that's not so many 16th notes. It's ba ba ba. Ba. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's very simple. It just looks like that. Bum 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 bum. Okay, so. But that was a melody that came out of me, and what I used to do, or what you can do, is you take like 5 pages of this manuscript, and you just write down using just those two notes. Da, 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 da. I'm not going to sit here and waste your time doing it, but I could sing. Da 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 don don don. Do do da 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 don don don. Da da da. Kind of moronic, but. And simple, but it's melody. Da 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 da. And still, even with just two notes, you want to try to make it make sense. Da 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 bum bum. That's like a sentence. Da 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 da. You know, and it's infinite what you can create with just those two notes. So you fill 6 pages, 5, 6 pages with just those two notes. You'll get really quick at it. You'll get really quick. And then you read it back a bunch of times. Dun, 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 so that you're learning how to read what you wrote along with learning how to write it. You're learning how to translate it from your inner ear onto paper. And then you're learning how to see what it sounds like just by looking at it. That's a great gift to be able to see music and read it like it's a story or something. And this is a good practice. And then, after you feel like you're at 100%, that anytime you ever want to write a melody with two notes, you got it. And you can also sing it. Then you add another note. Da, da, da. Maybe it's a major third. Bum, bum, bam. Or maybe a minor third, bum, bum, bam. So if that was my 3-note choice, I'd have C, D, E flat. Now with those 3 notes, I could fill 6 pages, I could go on forever with just those 3 notes. Bum, 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 bam, bum, dun, 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 dun. Sounds like James Bond. Dun, 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 dun. I could write that down, but I don't want to waste your time. But it would look something like this. If I was writing something with those 3 notes, I'd go dun, 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 dun. That's just the simple. That's just what just right came out, that bottom line. So fill up 6 pages of it. It's great fun because you're creating and you're hearing it in your head and it's coming out. The theory has nothing to do with it. The theory is now a background tool. The theory is that's an 8th note. It gets half a beat. You know, that's a flat symbol. So that means it's E flat. That's all the theory. but the melody is dun 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 dun, dun, the important part. And when you can hear that in your head and write it down, that's a form of freedom that you can only experience by doing it. And then you add another note and fill 6 more pages and read it back until you can sing it back 100% correctly. And then you add another note, etc., etc., until you can write atonal music and sing it back just by looking at it. When you can do this, and some people it's going to be much easier because they've come into the world with some kind of musical ears. But for some people, wherever you're at with that, you can always train them more, even if you're already accomplished with your ears. And then there's people who have perfect pitch. I don't. I kind of thought I did when I was younger, but perfect pitch is like degrees. It comes in degrees, I think, because I know all sorts of people that have perfect pitch, some of them not even musicians. And I would highly recommend checking out Rick Beato. Many of you know who he is. Amazing guy and an incredible teacher. And that guy, he developed his son, Dylan. I discovered when Dylan was 6. Now this boy has ears that I can't even believe. I mean, go watch the videos. The father, will play double poly chords, and the little boy will not only name every note, he'll write it down, then tell you every chord. That's freakish, but it's cool. But I can't do that. I don't know very many people who can. Maybe Jacob Collier. His ears are unlike anything I've ever seen. Then there's people that have, that's called perfect pitch. And from what I understand, that once you hit 50, you start to lose it. But relative pitch is your ability to hear a note and then know another note by just hearing it. So I might know that, I might know an interval of a fourth, but I don't know the notes. I can't name the notes. And from the degree of perfect pitch that I kind of had was just for specific notes that I could, grab and then pick up my relative pitch from there. So like, I mean, I think that's an A. It's an A. And then I can go from there. And the only reason I know that that's an A is because when I was a kid, I used to play Jimi Hendrix's Electric Ladyland, the song, his rhythm guitar part. Oh my God, it's so cool. And it always started on, well, it was actually A flat, and I adjusted through the years. Something like that. But I used to love, have you ever? So, that's how I memorized an A. I listened in my mind. And also, Bees. I knew Bees because of the Black Page. I had to play that song so many times, and it always starts on. So I could hear that note in my head. It haunted me. Okay, so writing down music now, another great way to develop your ears is by transcribing music. Now that you have a relationship, and this is all interesting to you, but it is incredibly helpful for just playing, just being a musician. You got to develop your ears, and but transcribing music can be really a powerful help in identifying music when you hear it. And I became fascinated with transcription when I was in college. Of course, I was learning songs when I was started to play. I was 12 or 13. I was learning songs and then taking them to Joe Satriani to see if they were correct because he was my teacher. And then I knew music. I knew written music. But it wasn't until I was at Berkeley, I believe, where I started to really focus on transcribing. And it happened when I first heard Zappa's The Black Page. I wanted to write it down. I didn't have the music, and there was something bizarre about it, and beautiful, exotic, and abstract. And I wanted to know, I couldn't figure out what that was. I had later come to find, just by trying to transcribe it, that it's all very polyrhythmically written. And everything, all the melodies are based off of a 2-chord. So I started to transcribe all sorts of things. And transcribing is when you listen to something and then you write it down. And I remember I had a little cassette player and I beat the hell out of this thing just because I had to keep listening to stuff. And when I had, listening to a little piece over and over and over and over, it would just go. And of course, I broke it many times, and I was broke, so I couldn't really afford anything else, and would have to try to bring it to the students at MIT to fix. But that was a great experience, and you can do that with all sorts of kinds of music just by listening to it and writing it down. You hear the melody. And you could check on your instrument and whatnot. For me, some people, I get questions occasionally about what it was like to transcribe those years with Frank and whatnot. So I guess maybe this is a good time to mention that. And basically, I was transcribing when I was in college, and then I had transcribed the Black Page and sent it to Frank. Now, I didn't know if it was correct because, I was just using my ears as opposed to knowing the music by having it. But I guess it was impressive enough that Frank took interest. And I had sent him that transcription along with a tape of my band. So he was interested in the way I played, and also this was amazing what happened. He had actually sent me, while I was at Berkeley, an actual copy of the Black Page. And I could see where I was right and where I was wrong. And there was no way I was right 100% because the Black Page is an incredibly dense, complex piece of music. But I was right enough to where it was, Frank was interested enough to send it to me. And he sent me a note that said, "Make me a recording of the Black Page on the guitar as fast as you can play it." So I had an acoustic guitar and my little cassette player. And what was really funny was I was in college, so I was kind of, kooky college kid. And I was living in this little apartment, and I had my little cassette player, and I learned the Black Page. It was originally, I think, at 58, quarter note equals 58. I think I tried playing it at 73, which was just very difficult and hard. And what was funny was it was a tiny little apartment with, very thin walls. And the people in the room, in the apartment next to me, they loved having sex. And they loved being very loud about it. And I loved recording it through the wall because that's what you do when you're a college student. And you want to document the experience. So in one, I have this tape, and I didn't really even have enough money to buy many cassettes or anything like that. And so I've got these neighbors screaming sex on this tape. And then my cassette player broke. I didn't realize it, and I can only record on one side. So when I was making the cassette of the Black Page for Frank, which this was probably my first real audition piece, when I sent it to him, he had half of the tape had me playing the Black Page, and the other half, these people having wild sex. And I thought, yeah, he'll get a kick out of this. Anyway, I wonder where that tape is. So then when Frank heard this, he hired me to transcribe. He wanted me to try out for the band, but I was 18 at the time, so I was too young. But he did start sending me tapes of guitar solos. It started out, there was two cassettes filled with these long guitar solos and drums that he was, had recorded on tour, and he wanted me to transcribe them. So that was the gist of what I was doing with him, and it was great practice because Frank's guitar playing was pretty much diatonic. He stayed within a key, but his phrasing was just unlike anybody. It was so abstract, and and then he wanted me to transcribe Vinnie Colaiuta's drum parts. And when Frank and Vinnie would play together, they would go to Venus, and I would have to transcribe it. And with the drums, it was great practice because I would transcribe even the hi-hat, there's various ways to hit a hi-hat, with closed, open, sizzling, step, and all these have to be notated along with every other drum and all the various ways of hitting those. And I love that, and especially Vinnie, because his whole sense of time was very, he would superimpose meter on top of meter, and he would superimpose within the superimposed meters polyrhythms, and within the polyrhythms that he was superimposing over the superimposed meter, he would create nested tuplets within the polyrhythm itself. So you got this pretty wild looking music. And then when I moved to California when I was 20, back then, when you needed to copyright a song, you had to send a piece of the music to the copyright department in Washington. So you had to have a lead sheet. So I was charged with the responsibility from Frank to make sure all of his songs had lead sheets. Some of them did, a lot of them did, but some of them were in all these different forms. So I had to go through Frank's entire catalog and make lead sheets. Lead sheet is a simplified form of written music. It's usually just like the chords and the melody, the chord symbol and the melody. You can extrapolate a little more. But so I was, then Frank started having me transcribe things for the band. So I remember one of the things I transcribed was the entire Roxy and Elsewhere album, all the instruments. And that, especially that whole side of the record with the Kindis Arf and all that, was fantastic. I loved doing it. And it got a little deep at times when Frank requested that I, like for instance, there's this miraculous piece of music he wrote called Gregory Peccary. And when Frank was constructing it, Frank uses any means necessary. He would parts of it were orchestrated and recorded in an orchestra with an orchestra. Parts were recorded with rock band and orchestra. Parts were, he would just tell you play this, and then it wasn't written, but it became part of the arrangement. So you'd have all of these. You'd have this entire piece of music, Gregory Peccary, but all the elements of it came from different places. So I actually was able to grab his original score for the majority of the work. And I created a score that incorporated all of the little bits that weren't written and all of the little bits that were written that were only lead sheets that then exploded into full-blown orchestra pieces. So I had to listen to orchestra and try to take that down. Now my ears are they're okay. They're pretty good. They're pretty good. But they're not supreme. I mean, I have friends, I know people that even their dimension in hearing and translating is just on a higher level. There's more recognition. Those assholes. Just kidding. Okay, anyway, so ear training. Really important. And that's that. All right, let's move on. Got a little time here for a few questions I'll take. How we doing? I don't see any questions here. Stephen, is it possible to see some questions? Okay. Well, I've got some here. Okay. If ego was a note, which would it be, in your opinion? If the ego was a note, I don't necessarily see it as a note. I see it as a chord, a demolished chord. Okay. What exercises? Whoop, wait a minute. Somebody's on my computer. Okay, Stephen, let me just move this over so I can read some of the questions I got here. Hang out. Let go of the cursor for a minute. Oh, let go. Damn. All right, you can have it now. All right, so What exercise I should do for improvising solo? The best exercise is what I was discussing before, where you record random chords, and you can pick any tempo. If you don't have something to record, go get it. They're cheap. You can use GarageBand if you have a Mac or something. Just do a little research. You can use your iPhone. You can, or anything, to just record a chord, play something random, and then go to another chord, and then another chord, and you do that for a while, and then you play over it. Now, when you start playing over it, you're not going to know which the chords are that you're playing on the recording, so you're forced to use your ears. And that is a great exercise for improvising, because what it's doing, it's throwing away all the theory, and it's forcing you to create a personal relationship with the neck of the guitar. With your fingers and the neck, the spacing of notes, so that if you go here, it's gonna sound okay, because you're listening to the chord, and then you're listening to what you know is going to work in your head. Now, obviously, there is a period of time that you have to go through to hone your understanding of certain things and develop a particular amount of technique. But when you're left out there in the wilderness to fend for yourself, when it comes time to reacting in a musical situation spontaneously and effectively, you will only have your ears to go on. So that's why this is a great exercise for developing your improvisation. All right. Steve, instead of talking about this crap, give us your opinion about how to survive in the music business. And yes, I graduated from music school 25 years ago from the University of Amsterdam, jazz. And of course, if you have a jazz education, you can play everything. However, a professional guitar player like myself are surviving by doing session BS, playing stuff that you just hate in order to make some money. Solo music is long gone, all long gone. Musicians like you and Satch started when shredders was a thing, but that's all gone now. Please reply to this comment if you dare. Well, Ricky, I dare. And I saw this online based off of one of the, I think it was in Under It All. And yeah, if you're a guitar player and you're not really interested in those esoteric things I talk about in Under It All, you will say to me, instead of talking about all this crap. So that's fine. I'll talk about all that crap right here, or the other crap. All right. Instead of talking about, give us your opinion how to survive in the music business. And yes, I graduated from music school 25 years ago from the University of Amsterdam. Okay. Well, there's a lot I could say about surviving in the music business, and I discussed some of that when I was talking about things like how to have an economic overview of your economics as a musician, some suggestions on how to live below your means so that you don't feel like you've got a financial anxiety monkey on your back all the time. We know that musicians, career, the income can go like this sometimes. Sometimes you're eating good. Sometimes you're living off of reserves. That's all fine, and that can be helpful. But in your case here, give us your opinion on how to survive in the music business. There's all of the various economics, but the best way to survive in the music business is by changing your attitude. Yeah, having a positive attitude about what it is that you are doing, regardless of what you're doing musically. Why is this? Well, first of all, I'll explain that a little more. People who are musicians, and it sounds very obvious to me that that you are a musician. You are a guitar player. If it's been 25 years and you have made this your career from day whatever to now, you know you're a musician. You don't have a choice. You know, you don't want to do anything else, obviously. Now, when that kind of clarity comes to a person, a lot of times there's different reasons why. Sometimes it's a pseudo clarity because there's a fantasy of being rich and famous and established, and everybody knows who you are. If that's your goal, I can tell you that even if it happened to you, you would be miserable because it wouldn't be enough. How do I know this? Because what you have isn't enough for you now. And that mechanism of not enough doesn't go away, no matter how much you have. So your best bet, and I would say this to anybody, this is the secret, it's the key to all the other things that this is the key to all the things that you want. Find appreciation in the things you already have. Because if you don't, you will always be looking for something that you don't have, and that creates a state in you of frustration. So we've already established the fact that you are a musician. Most people, when they know that they're a musician, they don't have a choice. They can be content, or I guess I should say, the question for you, can you find a way to be content in any musical situation, BS, that you are in? Can you find a way to give your absolute best whenever you are doing anything musical, whether it's a wedding gig or a bas mitzvah? It doesn't matter whether you're teaching or if you're teaching. When I was young, I was fortunate. I had my anxieties, trust me, but it didn't matter to me what happened in my music career. I actually thought that I was going to be a music teacher in a high school, and that would have been fantastic for me because I had such a great music teacher. He changed my life. He was the key that opened the door for me, and I thought if I can do that for others, that's cool. And that's what I kind of felt, but even more clear to me was the picture of the Steve Vai guy that you know on stage. That took precedence. But anything I had to do, I was just happy. I should say about me. Is it possible for you to find an enjoyment in anything that you have to do musically? If you have a student and you're teaching somebody, this is a great honor. It's a privilege to be able to teach. If you have a caustic attitude that sounds something like, this kid is never going to be able to play, he's got a tin ear, he's got all these fantasies, he sucks, I hate teaching, I can't teach this kid, he's never going to mount to anything, I really hate doing this. How effective of a teacher do you think you're going to be with that attitude? Probably not very effective. It's when you take a personal interest and you try to see things through the eyes of the other, what their hopes and dreams are, what it is that they're trying to find that you can help them with. And when they make a discovery, it's like a victory for you. When they make their own discoveries brought on by something you inspired in them, to a truly positive attitude musician, that's a victory. And it's a great feeling. So can you find, and this is what's going to transform your entire experience. It's not within your access right now because it's obviously, and I understand, brother. I really do. I understand I understand what it can feel like to have that frustration of being in the music business for 25 years and having certain goals and dreams that just don't materialize. This is not uncommon. And my perspective on that is anything and everything that happens to you is in your best interest. You just don't see it. And the fantasies that you have about some claim to fame of being recognized in, by the whole world and being successful like that, these things may not be the best thing for you. You have a function, and your function is what you're doing, and your role. You have a role, and the function is to do it, give it your full attention and give it the best you can. So if you have to do a wedding gig, can you find the enjoyment in the sheer fact that you're making a living playing the guitar? This is going to change your attitude, and it's going to change your perspective. And when that happens, everything around you starts changing. When you can find the satisfaction of where you are right now and not feel the need to have to accomplish things that you have no idea, fame, because you'll never know if that's going to be in the cards or not. In reality, it doesn't matter, because what you're doing matters. What you're doing by giving it your love and attention, whether it's teaching, whether it's any kind of gig, that's going to change your attitude about what you do. And guess what happens when you can appreciate, fully appreciate where you're at and all that you do have? You made it. That's the making it. And you say, yeah, but I don't have the money and I have to struggle. Have you really struggled? Have you not made ends meet somehow? Have ends always met for you somehow? Only you can answer that, but I would assume yes. Maybe not the ends that your ego is telling you you want, but trust me, having money has its challenges too. The mental angst that a person can experience by financial anxiety doesn't have to do much with how much money they have. It has to do with how they're perceiving their own insecurity about money. Okay. I graduated from music school 25 years ago from the University of Amsterdam, jazz. And of course, if you have a jazz education, you can play everything. You can play a lot of gigs. However, a professional guitar player like myself are surviving by doing session BS, playing stuff that I just hate in order to make some money. Okay, that's not an uncommon situation where people find themselves having to do things for the economic balance, but may not necessarily be what they want. And I'm going to tell you how to get out of it. Do your best. Do your absolute best. Give that gig, those BS gigs. First of all, eliminate the term in your mind, this is a BS gig. This gig is bullshit. I shouldn't have to do this gig. As long as you're feeling that way, you're just going to be, you're going to be feeling like you're missing something. Can you find a way to play the same song over and over again and retain your interest in it, even if it's the Alley Cat Waltz? You know what I'm saying? Can you give your attention so much to something that you can enjoy it even if you're playing it multiple times, over and over, something simple? If you can, that gig's not going to be so BS. And it is, you're cheating yourself. You're cheating yourself of an opportunity to play the guitar when you're perceiving something that was given to you, like a gig anywhere, as BS. It's almost like a, in the face of your own consequence and your own advantage. It's like you're when you are making a statement like that, you're spitting in the eye of your own advantage. Okay, so another amazing thing happens when you show up on a gig that you might have previously felt was BS, and you were cultivating a newfound appreciation for the sheer fact that you've been able to play the guitar all these years, you've been able to make a living, You've been able to have these gigs. A lot of people play the guitar. They don't even have BS gigs to make a living with. But can you find appreciation in the fact that you're lucky enough to be able to be an artistic person your whole life by playing an instrument? What happens when you enter that session or that experience, whether it's teaching or whatever, you're a different person. You're emitting a different vibe. You're in a state of appreciation. You're appreciating the people around you. You're appreciating the experience, even if it's a wedding. You're appreciating the student. Whatever the situation is, and they feel this. They feel this, and that creates a co-creative environment that's enjoyable and progressive, and actually yields something of value, of greater value than if you had a bad attitude, while you were doing it. So really the key is changing the way you're looking at things. Realize that you're already doing it at the level that's most serving for you. Now, if you can embrace that and be content with where you're at and what you're doing and actually find appreciation in it, your whole perspective is going to change, and you will see more things come into your experience that are already there now that you're not seeing, that are co-creative components to all those things that you feel you would like to do but have not allowed yourself to do. What does that mean, that you would like to do and not allow yourself? What are you talking about, Vi? I allow myself to make my own music. It just doesn't sell. I can't get it out there. There's no more music like that. You guys had it all, Okay, so that's a mental attitude. And with that attitude, you will not see the cooperative components around you that are calling to you for you to be expressing in a very joyful way your own creative musical instincts. So, however, a professional time is 5. Okay. So solo music is all gone. That's what you wrote. Musicians like you and Satch started when shredding was a thing, but that's all gone now. Yeah, that's a very common misconception, but it's got a completely flawed premise in it. It's an excuse. Solo music is all gone. If you believe that, then it will be all gone for you. If you make it, then it won't be gone for you. It'll be real. So you've convinced yourself that solo music is all gone. I don't even know what that means. Solo music is all gone. An individual cannot record solo music. I think I know what you mean. What you mean is, I want to make, I may be wrong, but when I read that, it sounds to me like what you're saying is, I have music in me, and it has to do with being a solo guitar player, an instrumental guitar player. But I can't do it because solo music is all gone. Nobody will listen to it. There's no audience for it. It's not a trend right now. There's no way for me to do it because it's not a thing. That's a very common concept that a lot of people have. But it's important to understand that the reason why it was a thing at any given time was because somebody made it a thing. When Jeff Beck released his first solo records, they were unprecedented. They were basically, as far as I could tell, from where I was seeing Jeff Beck's solo records when I was a kid, they were instrumental. They were melody. They were incredible. They were, for me, they were life, And Jeff Beck did not care what was going on in the industry. If Jeff Beck sat back and said, I can't do solo music because it's not the thing, where would we be? He made it the thing because of the inspiration he injected into his music, because of the energy, the brilliance that his music had in it. He made it a thing. You see? It wasn't a thing, but he made it a thing. Okay, Joe Satriani Well, then who came? Like when Al Di Meola came along, you know, and his solo music, and to this day, is brilliant and inspired, and it's on everybody's radar who's interested because he made it a thing. You see? So when Joe Satriani released the first one, I think the first one was Joe Satriani, and then Not Surfing with the Alien, Not of This Earth. And then you have Surfing, and then you got Joe's catalog. It's preposterous knowing Joe and thinking that any place in his mind could even remotely hold the thought, I can't do this because it's not a thing. The idea is laughable, knowing Joe, because these people don't give a shit what the thing is. They got something in them and they're getting it out. And because of their focus and their absolute confidence in their inner music, it becomes a thing. So to make a statement as we started when shredding was a thing, no, we didn't. We created it. And I mean, you know, when Yngwie released his instrumental, or had some vocals on it, that was when shred really kicked in. People will disagree, and it's fine, and it's all based on how you look at it. But when you heard Yngwie, that was the birth of shred, brother. And it's taken on massive proportions since then. But it wasn't a thing. He made it a thing. So what I would suggest is, this might be a little difficult at first. And I know that after years and years of practicing these thoughts, they can really own you. They get their claws in deep. And even after everything I said, nope, Vi, you are wrong. It's not popular, and nothing that I can do will make it popular. Then you won't. And I'm here to tell you that you can. That you can. You could make it as popular as your inspirations can reach. So the way you do that is, first, you got to cool your jets a bit, brother. You know, you got to see the frustration and see that it is holding you back. And the way that you eliminate the frustration is you find the appreciation in the things you already have. Make a list of them. Write them down. I have a guitar. Now, you don't have to sit there and go, yeah, I have a guitar, and some people don't. Some people are so, you know, they can't even afford it. You don't have to go there. The simple appreciation of the fact that I have a guitar is very simple to appreciate. It's just a, yeah, that's nice. And that changes your whole vibration. Actually saying, I have a guitar and some people don't. Some people are just, you know, they're so unfortunate they can't even afford a guitar. That's negative perspective. You're introducing into your vibration, so to speak. Now I'm Abraham Hicksing. A negative vibration. It's much different than just the sheer, simple appreciation that I have a guitar and I have an amp and I can actually play jazz. And I know all that theory. I like knowing that theory. And I like applying it. And I like the fact that I was fortunate enough to be able to study at this particular college and learn all these things and meet all those people I met. And I learned much more than just music, you know? So now your perspective is changing. And you might say, well, you know, even though this particular gig is not necessarily something I want to do all the time, let me see how I can make it the best experience for myself and others. When you do that, you start to find comfort in where you are at right now. And I'm here to tell you that where you are at right now is absolutely perfect for you, regardless of whether you believe that or not. It is. And the feelings of appreciation for where you are at will shine its light on that fact, that where you are at is fine. It's perfect. And then from there, once you have that feeling, because that feeling is abundance, that feeling that you get when you find appreciation in the things that are there for you at all times, is the feeling of abundance. And when that happens, your whole mental attitude and what you attract into your life and what you're attracted to changes. Because you may also find in your mind at that time that you make that shift, I think I want to record this song that I have. And I want to make it the best that I can make it. I don't know who's going to hear it. I don't care who hears it. I don't have any expectations. But I want to make a song that's really important to me, that has my real intentions in it. Not somebody else. I don't have to fit into a genre. Maybe it'll sound like a genre. Maybe it'll sound heavy metal. Maybe it'll sound jazz, whatever it is. You don't even worry about that. What is that? What is that? And if you may not even be able to find the ability to look at your own music that way when you're being bamboozled by this negative attitude of everything sucks and only you guys made it because it was the right time. And it's not the thing anymore, so I can't do it. Okay, I'm trying to show you that that's a thought. And there's other thoughts you can think about yourself, what you play, and your music in the world. And when you do that, you are aligning yourself with actually doing those things. And then anything that comes out of your music is in the way of a response or success or anything like that. It's just a bonus. It's a bonus. So that's, I wish you the best with it. And I would tell you to just experiment with that. Experiment with changing your attitude. And I'm not telling you to tell yourself things that you don't believe, because that's just mental lip service and it doesn't work. Matter of fact, it makes things worse, because then you're just creating a conflict within yourself. From where you're at, find thoughts that you can believe that are also true, but make you feel a little better. So if you believe these thoughts that you're writing, they will be true for you, and they're not very comfortable feeling thoughts. And they color your entire world. If you're brave enough to experiment with this idea of looking for better thoughts about what you're doing, as I explained when I was showing you some of the various kinds of more positive thoughts, then you'll never know what changes can happen in your life as a result of that. You have to put in the mental work, and I highly recommend you do that. As a matter of fact, I dare you. Okay. What else we got here? Okay, just a few more. Can you explain more about working on your strengths and not your weaknesses, please? You know what? That's a good question. I'm going to save it for when we have a little more time, maybe next week. Let me highlight it, because I can go down a rabbit hole on that stuff too. I'm blathering. Okay. Are your emotions involved when writing and playing a song? And if so, which emotions do you find you use the most? Sexual aggression. Yeah, maybe. Okay. Are your emotions involved when writing and playing a song? And if so, which emotions do you find you use the most? I used to, my songwriting process has changed through the years. And it's one particular line of thought says, I need to be emotional in my music. I need to go someplace emotionally and capture that emotion and put it into my music. So let's see. How do I feel? Well, my girlfriend just left me and I'm not happy. And I need to, that's an emotion. I'm unhappy. And I need to write about that in a song. Because I believe, not me personally, I'm just saying this is how a lot of people think. I believe that if I can express my pain, I'll be healing myself and the world. I believe that if I engage in my pain by going over and over in my mind how wrong she was and how my heart is broken, and if it's not those kinds of emotions, it could be others like how fucked up the world is. Yeah, that's a good one. The world is just wrong, and I need to write about it. And that's an emotional state. Or I'm in love. I love the feeling of being in love. And what does that feel like? I'm going to write about it. So these are emotional states. I'm just not feeling so, I'm feeling kind of angry. I'm actually really angry. I'm angry. I'm angry at the world, and I need to get it out, so I'm going to write. I'm writing my song, and this is angry. This is angry. I heard a song once that said that the lyric went, "Fuck you, you fucking fuck." And it was about me. So that's a lot of anger. So these are this is a relative description of embracing an emotional state of mind and then writing from it. And this is what a lot of people do. I don't do that. Not anymore. Because for me, I discovered a much more powerful way to find my inspiration, and I'll try to explain. The cathartic process of working through something that doesn't feel good to you can happen in people in different ways. And many people believe that if I write about it or I paint about it, I'll be exercising it from my life. I'll be getting it out of my life. This is a mistake in perspective, in perception, because what is actually happening is you are making more of it. By giving your attention, let's say you were in a relationship and you were betrayed or whatever, and you're hurt, and you feel like you need to get it out on paper, and you need to write a song about it. And when I get on stage, I got to express it. I got to express that anger. How good do you think expressing your anger will be on finding your peace? Now again, I hear some people thinking, yeah, but it works for me. Once I get really angry and I take it out on the stage, I feel good. I feel like I've gotten it out. Well, you're probably feeling exhausted, because anytime you are angry, you're not making yourself feel good. You're hurting yourself, and you're actually creating more of it. And this is what can happen when you start digging into the bottomless pit of your own despair. So what I try to do is something different. Instead of playing or writing my music emotionally, I try to write it and play it connected to the source of where it all comes from. And when you are connecting with your inspired musical brilliance, it's joy. Joy, when the way I use it, transcends happy sad. It's a state of well-being. It's a state of incredible freedom of expression. And you can see this in some people who are in a state of inspired action. and they're connected. You know, I've said this before, when you see a great athlete, you go watch Michael Jordan play basketball. The man is connected. He flies through the air effortlessly. He's in the present moment. And you can see this is what a master is. A master is somebody that has a connection with that opening where their most inspired, uplifting, joyful, powerful, even if it's heavy metal, you can play intense heavy metal and have it sound inspired in a connected way as opposed to an angry, emotional way. The choice is yours, but you got to find that opening. So what I try to do, because I know that when I get on a stage and I'm performing, I'm affecting the people that are listening, because their attention is on me and I have an intention. And if I'm playing emotionally and I'm angry, I'm going to be sharing that. And I'm going to be inspiring people to it. Now, that's fine for some people. That's fine. I'm just not comfortable doing that. I prefer to reach that I'm still an incredible work. I'm a work in progress, and this is what I strive for every time I pick up an instrument, to get past the ego and get past the emotions, so to speak, and go deep into the connectivity. It's so far beyond emotion. It's above emotion. It's connected. It's inspired. It's your inspired voice. And the emotion that it evokes in you is that of incredible joy and well-being. And that's where I try to find it. I'm not entirely there all the time. I would say maybe I'm fully there in that brilliant state of inspiration 3% of the time. But I can do a lot with that 3%. All right, a few more. Hi, can you talk about scales and modes? Okay, well, I kind of did that. Thank you, Mark Donofrio. How can a person overcome self-criticism in their work? Have you ever been blocked on your creativity by that? How can a person overcome self-criticism in their work? Well, self-criticism is an inside job that you do to yourself based on a belief about yourself that you have that's actually untrue. Okay? And until you recognize that, you'll be self-criticizing yourself. And when you self-criticize yourself, you're attacking yourself. And self-criticism sounds something like, I'm not good enough, I'm not as good as him, why does he have it all, or she, and I don't? That's another thing I just want to mention real quick. I saw somebody had written, what about women? And when if I say he, I'm referring to everybody. If I say our fellow man, brothers, if I use the word brothers or sisters, I'm referring to everybody. I don't make a distinction. So self-criticism in the head it'll sound like the little voice telling you you're not good enough, this is shit, this isn't as good as what everybody else is doing. Of course you're not making it. You never make it. Another form of self-criticism is, I am the best. Everybody else sucks. Or they're just, some people are really good, but no, they're not me. No, I am the superior one. That's another form of, it's a criticism, but it's just as it's just as skewed as a negative criticism. So it's important to understand that this is your ego telling you these things. And the reason why it tells you these things is because the ego doesn't care if you are the best at something or the worst at something. As long as you're the most at something than somebody else. And you can see this mechanism in work in people simply when they're even having a conversation and somebody says something like, oh, yesterday I had such a rough day at work. I mean, it was tough. And the other person says, you think you had a rough day? Let me tell you about what happened to me, because my day was rougher than yours. That's the ego. It needs to be more than. If it can't be more in its superiority, it's just as happy to be more in its suffering. So it's a big defense. Self-criticism is a defense mechanism. It's saying, I don't want to try because I'm afraid of failing. So I'm going to tell myself I'm not good enough because I don't even want to try. Because God forbid I discover that I am not better than the others. You're done. Just quit. All right? That would be your best bet if you cannot get over that thought. But it even doesn't matter if you quit, because if you're believing self-criticism, you're not just believing it in your music career. You're believing it in all sorts of aspects of your life. So how do you get out of it? How can a person overcome self-criticism in their work? The first thing you have to be able to do is recognize when you're doing it and realize that this is a lie and it's an egoic perspective, and there are other things that are more true about you than these words that you're saying in your head. It might be hard to scrape them off. It might be hard to shift from them because you practice them. People practice negative criticism about themselves for their whole life sometimes. Some thoughts, something happened. This happened to me when I was 7 years old, and as such, I am a broken person. So everything I do will fail. And I know this is true because this is what the psychiatrists say, and it's just not true. It's true for you if you believe it. But what I'm here to tell you is there are other things that you can believe about yourself that are more true, that you can believe. So the first step in removing the self-criticism is recognizing it and realizing that it's just a thought in your head and that you're attacking yourself. You're actually attacking yourself when you think these thoughts. Do you want that? Do you want that? Nobody can change it but you. And you just have to decide how much suffering you want. And maybe you hear me say something like that and you say, well, what other thoughts can I have? Well, you are a creative person. There's no doubt. So if your mind is saying right now, I'm not creative, you're just wrong. All right? Everything you do has a creative element in it, whether you know it or not. You're always making decisions, or you believe you are, and you have a function in the world. There is something that you're doing in the world that you enjoy doing, that feels natural to you. When you're doing it, you're not criticizing yourself. There's no fear in it. There's just a simple recognition of, I like this, I'm doing this. And it could be anything. It could be something as simple as crunching numbers, for an accountant. Or it could be something as simple as embroidering. My sister Pam embroiders, and we've talked a lot about it and how this is her comfort zone, her zone of presence. It's her mindful she practices mindfulness and she loves it. And when she's doing it, everything just happens. And she, of course, there was a period where she had to practice, but this is a natural, beautiful gift, artistic, creative gift that she has no expectations that she has to create a career out of to become rich and famous at, or that she has to win awards for her embroidery, or that that if she doesn't do good embroidery, she's going to be criticized. This is her secret little passion, and she loves it. It makes her feel great, and her embroidery is fantastic. I think I might have some. Now, if I show you, she'll kill me. So there is something that you do where none of that self-criticism is necessary, and it's not even there, perhaps. Right? If you could throw yourself into that with no excuses and enjoy the process and figure out a way to make a living at it, you're gonna live a happy life. And if you find yourself criticizing yourself incessantly about your guitar playing, well, it says here in your work, how can a person overcome self-criticism in their work? Realize that you are doing the best you can, and that best is more effective than what your mind is telling you about it. You're doing good work, whether you know it or not, and you're doing the best you can at anything. And the mind, the criticism, the way to overcome it is to first see it and then decide. The second way to overcome it is to decide firmly within yourself that you're just not going to buy into it because it's just not true. And it's not. Have you ever been blocked on your creativity by that? Yes, yes. I sit here and I say these things. You know, I have an ego and it's there and it is powerful, but I see it. And through the years, especially the last 10 years, I've been able to see the folly of some of the words that the ego is saying. And that's the only way to overcome self-criticism, is to recognize when you're doing it, decide you don't want it anymore because it's a lie. Okay, and there you have it, folks. I think we're good. Thank you for joining. And Thursday is Under It All at noon Pacific Standard. And thank all you guys for your questions. And wow, and some people ask me why I wear these glasses and why they're yellow, because it's for the computer screen and it's really helpful. So now it's like the shades came off. But okay, so Thursday Under It All is more about esoteric type questions. I'm not going to be playing the guitar really or anything. Just going to be talking. And Thursday's session will be about the most important question that you can ask yourself. So thanks for joining, and I will see you Thursday if you can make it. And I see you, and I appreciate you.